Previously on the Board Game Sherpa. After having a wonderful random encounter with Flying Frog founder Scott Hill at Gen Con 2023, the Board Game Sherpa decided to try to overcome his 10-year fear of Shadows of Brimstone and actually sat through a playthrough introduction to the game given by the man who's a huge reason for him fearing the game. Ironically, this was his own Board Game Sherpa who introduced him to Shadows of Brimstone 10 years ago. The Board Game Sherpa enjoyed the demo enough to buy his own version of Shadows of Brimstone, the Gates of Valhalla Viking version. But things weren't simple as that. There was a whole preparation process to get Gates of Valhalla table ready, and that tested the Board Game Sherpa's resolve and patience. Was all that work worth it? Still confused? Well, then you should probably watch parts 1 and 2 of this Shadow of Brimstone series to catch up. Seriously, even though they're all standalone episodes, you might enjoy it better if you know the full history of what brought us to this point. And now, the finale of... Hey there, and welcome back to the final episode of my Shadows of Brimstone trilogy here on the Board Game Sherpa channel. If only my Gen Con 2014 self could see how this all turned out. After fearing Shadows of Brimstone for almost 10 years, I now own my own copy and spent almost 30 hours preparing Gates of Valhalla to be played. Now it was time to gather the crew and finally play Shadows of Brimstone the way it was meant to be played. The pioneer group who absolutely had to be included in our initial Gates of Valhalla game were my personal Board Game Sherpa, Johnny Rocks, who introduced me to and steered me away from the game back in 2014, as well as got me into the board game hobby originally. He chose the character of the Viking Jarl, or Chieftain, and since he was our Brimstone leader in Sherpa, this character was a natural fit. No Facebook Eric, who helped convince me to do this video series while we were at Gen Con 2023. He chose the Viking Raider character, although he hates the combo of the name, since in Old Norse, Viking is translated as Raider, so literally it's Raider Raider. But Viking Raider is what Flying Frog calls it, so that's what I'm going with. Mrs. Board Game Sherpa, who put in so much work and gave me tons of support while prepping Gates of Valhalla. She chose the Viking Huskarl, or Warrior, or Royal Bodyguard. This worked out as the core Valhalla game had 3 male and 1 female miniature representation of the heroes. And rounding out the party was me, and I chose the Viking Berserker. No, not that one, but the bear shirt wearing warrior shaman one with inhuman power. Yeah, that's totally me. I named him Raging Ragnar. Missing were Scott Hill, the co-founder of Flying Frog Productions, who is key in this game ever happening, but he lives on the other side of the country and may have been just a little bit busy managing a company that puts out a lot of content. And finally, AP, who gave me a lot of advice on how to do this video series. Most importantly, stopping me from showing you all 22 hours of the GoPro footage I shot. When asked to join the game, he had absolutely no interest in playing. We chose an extremely stormy Saturday in September and met at the Sherpa Cave. The rain will always be memorable because it stormed so much that the rain was actually going sideways. And the power got knocked out twice while playing. Thankfully, we had a Ryobi battery-powered work light and were still able to play uninterrupted while the power was off. The thundering storm really did ambiance to our visit to the Northlands. Hey, maybe Thor wanted to play. Johnny chose the scouting party mission for us, and off we went. The description of the mission was, the hero's expedition has landed on unknown shores and has sent out a scouting party to investigate the area. Its mission goal was to scout the area and uncover 2 exploration tokens, which would mark the end tile where our expedition would set up camp, and complete this mission. Side note, if you haven't figured it out yet, this is definitely not a how to play Gates of Valhalla video. I'll leave that to the YouTube channel Robs Tabletop World, which has some great how to play videos. I'm sure there are other great channels out there, but between Rob's channel and my personal Board Game Sherpa, Johnny Rocks, answering tons of questions, I had all bases covered on what I needed to play Gates of Valhalla. Okay, back to the video. We start off the game, and much like my original demo from the previous episodes, we were ambushed quickly.
Ambush attack.
No.
This time by Gremlin demons and had to fight our way out of there. It was our first group fight, and we had to learn about the Brimstone fighting mechanism. There was a lot of dice rolling, and we all started to figure out our characters' weaknesses and strengths. Johnny Rocks' Chieftain was a good leader who was good at resisting sanity damage. Even though he wasn't great at defense rolls, his armor helped out, and he was able to help the party out with rage tokens each turn. No Facebook Eric's Raider was a well-rounded utility player who could build grid easily but didn't have a ranged attack and had to be right in the mix of things to cause damage. And as we found out during the game, he had problems with sanity. Mrs. Board Game Sherpa Warrior had great spirit and helped heal her team's sanity damage. She also had a bow for ranged attacks and a sword and shield for up-close and personal fighting. I can talk about my Berserker a little bit more since I got pretty tight with him over the course of the game. He's a fighting maniac with a lot of health and not much sanity to begin with. His only armor was a pelt over his bare chest that really didn't protect much. But Raging Ragnar didn't care. He and his 2 axes just jumped into the mix without any concern for any of that. And one of the huge benefits is that he was slippery, and he could slip in and out of battles without having to roll dice to escape. I have never played a tank in any of my previous RPG games, but this bare-chested maniac was a pure joy to control. During the game, I grabbed 2 plastic forks as axes and created a ritual with them. It looked more like Wolverine from X-Men, but more often than not, it helped my dice roll luck. So I'm going to keep doing it. Don't judge. During the fight with the Gremlins, we learned of their big pain in the butt ability. If a hero rolls a 1 during their attack, another Gremlin gets added to the fight. Nothing more frustrating than killing one, only to have another one take its place. We must have fought 20 of them during that attack, but we finally beat them. Then we took on a troll who liked to throw rocks and heal themselves after each turn. He was a lot tougher than the Gremlins, but there was only one of him, and he didn't reproduce with bad rolls. We took him down without much trouble. After another ambush by the Gremlins, we were hurting, but we finally found the second clue and started the final boss fight. This time against 3 trolls. Our heroes fought valiantly, but soon we were down 3 players. Only Raging Ragnar was left standing, and he was just too rage-filled to know he was hurting. The final troll was close to falling, but then the depth tracker screwed us. For those of you who haven't played Shadows of Brimstone, the depth tracker is kind of a timer with the hero marker beginning on the far left and the darkness marker on the far right. Every new room the heroes enter moves the hero marker 1 peg to the right. On the flip side, the darkness marker moves left from 1 to 15 depending on the dice. The torch holder of the group rolls 2 dice, and if it doesn't beat the number on the bottom of the section that the hero marker is in, darkness gets 1 step closer. There are also some destructive cards that get drawn as darkness lands on certain pegs. If the darkness marker ever reaches the far left, the game is over. A bunch of other stuff happened, but those were the highlights of the game. Even though we lost, we gained a lot of XP, gold, pelts, and actual real-life experience in playing Shadows of Brimstone. Raging Ragnar even leveled up to level 2. So, what did I think? Well, this is the 3rd and final episode of the Brimstone series, so I guess I have to tell you this time. I loved it. I finally understand why Johnny Rocks is so obsessed with this game. Yes, we lost this round, but I really can't wait to get the crew together to avenge our loss. It has all the things I like about Dungeons & Dragons, an immersive story, finding a cooperative team that can work together and just beat stuff up and collect treasure. I like D&D and my group and DM, but it's a lot of work, mostly for the DM, to get a campaign together. My group only gets together every couple of months because of all the work involved in getting it ready. With Brimstone, once you do the initial prep work, which, as you saw in episode 2, takes on a whole lot of work, once you decide to play, you just open the box and you can be kicking butt in the Northlands in minutes. And your game leader can actually fight alongside you, instead of finding ways to challenge your party. I don't know if I'll ever try Brimstone this way, but you can even play the game solo. I'm totally convinced that by playing and loving role-player adventures by Thunderworks during the 10 years I feared Shadows of Brimstone, it prepared me to enjoy the game. Had I played it 10 years ago during my first year playing more advanced board games, Gates of Valhalla might have been way too much for me. Flying Frog and Thunderworks really streamlined the dungeon crawling process to make it digestible for me. I will never be as invested in Shadows of Brimstone as much as Johnny Rocks is. Not many people can do that. But I do love the fact that I could buy any other core games and expansions from Flying Frog and eventually have feudal Japan characters interacting with my Vikings on a derelict spaceship full of feral vampires. I'm not entirely sure if that's a realistic scenario or if I even really want that scenario to happen, but just knowing it could happen is enough for me. The stories that can be told in Shadows of Brimstone are limitless. Okay, now the bad part about Gates of Valhalla. I never want to go through the process of preparing a core Shadows of Brimstone game ever again. That was a lot of work, and if it wasn't for Mrs. Board Game Sherpa picking up my slack and painting the majority of this stuff, this game may never have happened. I'm not a miniature painter if I haven't told you in the last 5 minutes. Mrs. Board Game Sherpa enjoys it somehow, but even then, I don't know how much I could dump on her before she cracks. I'm happy that I went through the process once to appreciate all the work Johnny Rocks has put in on all of his Shadows of Brimstone games over the years. The good part is that he prepared quite a few of the core games and expansions already, so if he's up for playing Brimstone with me, we could always use his setup for the other core games that Flying Frog has put out. So what's the bottom line? I'm really happy with Shadows of Brimstone and Gates of Valhalla. What started out as a game I literally feared playing turned to a game I actually love. All because the Flying Frog founder was really nice to me at Gen Con 2023. This really should be a case study for just how being nice to people could turn them into a lifelong customer, even if that customer told them he would never play their game. Thanks to everyone involved for making this happen. Scott and Jason Hill and all the amazing staff at Flying Frog Productions. My personal board game, now Brimstone Sherpa, Johnny Rocks. No Facebook Eric. AP of Made by AP, Rob Oren of Robs Tabletop World, Family Fun Hobbies in Hamilton, New Jersey, and of course my wonderful wife, Mrs. Board Game Sherpa, who puts up with a lot more than she should. And thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this episode and series, please subscribe and put a big thumbs up on the like button. It really helps me out and can bring more people into the board gaming hobby. And that will help increase the amount of people overall who are willing to play your favorite games. Big win all around. So go like and subscribe. Deal? See you next episode.